It's fine. I mean, it doesn't look crazy.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Status of the Nation. It's your girl Malibu. So, yeah, this week, like every other week, we're going to be breaking down some of the biggest stories that we've had happening in the past couple of days. So, first of all, we're going to start right here at home with what's been going on in Tshwane. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I don't see how, basically, over the past couple of days, Tshwane has really just been burning. There's no other way to put it. And basically, there's been like a series of riots, just because, a lot of the residents in Tshwane are just not happy with how a lot of things went down. So basically, how it all went down and how we're all understanding is just about how the mayoral candidates, the names got announced. And basically, how the story goes, or what we've been told publicly, is just a case of some of the residents were not happy with the inclusion and exclusion of certain people on the list of the mayoral candidates. And now how it basically went down is that a whole new candidate got introduced to the list. So from my understanding, a lot of people obviously didn't know who this candidate was. When they found out who she was, it obviously turned into a huge drama and people were not happy. And that's how the burning of the city went down. I think when I heard the story, more than anything, I was like, I feel like this is a lesson in leadership. And a lesson in leadership in the sense that you need to be able to respect residents, you need to be able to respect voters. So you don't just one day pull a name that people have never heard of and then you want to put her up there and say, well, this is one of the candidates that we have. And that was really the gripe that a lot of residents had. And what I also found interesting when all of this happened is that a lot of the leaders and the political parties, per usual, all of them were jockeying back and forth and trying to come for each other without anyone really listening to what the residents have to say. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't condone on any level, destruction of property or burning of things. But I always say that when it's gotten to that point, we need to step back and actually listen to what it is that people are saying, hear them out and hear their frustrations, And then I also got to thinking. So one of the leaders was basically saying that, how candidates are chosen is an internal party process and that the public really is not involved in it, and then we just get given the names. And then I thought about it. I'm like, that's really very interesting. And then I thought that maybe what if we got to the point where when candidates got announced, we got not even when candidates got announced, I thought about it. I was like, okay, if they're going to say that candidates are decided within the party, really, and it's up to the party to decide who they put up there, could it be time for us to change maybe how things are done, right? Could it be that we're approaching a time where when we're voting more based on the public directly says these are the people that we want, and that's how people get chosen. I'm basically thinking that maybe it's time for us to change how we elect, right? So for example, how in the States there isn't like a party that puts forth a person. Everybody throws their name in the hat and everybody runs. And then based off of that, people vote, and that's how people start to fall away until you're left with the remaining candidates, and that's who people vote for. Maybe that's something we need to consider in our country, especially in terms of, our mayors and the people that we have in the various cities, because the people who live in those cities and the residents, they're more closely tied to what's actually happening. And maybe it should be that way, that everybody throws their name in the ring, people vote, and then people start to fall away, and then we end up with the candidates, and then the municipality, the environment, the society, the residents of that specific place then get to vote. Because I think we're seeing now how when politicking happens and names just get thrown in for whatever reason, it leaves the residents feeling like they're not heard and they're not happy, and I think that really is the manifestation of what's happened in Tshwane. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if we really should be thinking about maybe how we vote. Maybe we should be thinking along the lines of, okay, this is how we're going to start picking our candidates, because clearly when it's left up to other people and we're surprised and people are getting things that they didn't expect or people they didn't necessarily want, that's a bit of a problem. So let me know what you guys think. Then the other big story that happened over the past couple of days, the UK deciding to leave the EU. Now, this story, I think I speak for all of us when I say that this was the biggest shock in a really long time in terms of international politics and what's been really going on. I'm not going to break it down because I did a lot of that on my Facebook, where I just basically detailed what it is, what it means, and how they actually got to this point. But I really wanted to discuss what I think has been the biggest driving force of them getting to a point of actually wanting this referendum. I think the biggest driving force or the biggest driving issue for for this thing has been immigration. The total net immigration in the UK is running at over 300,000 a year, right? And the most recent official figures put net migration from EU countries at 184,000 a year and non-EU at 188, right? And that EU citizens basically have the right to live and work in any member state, right? So the people who are basically voting for the UK to leave the EU is that they felt that it was impossible to control migration being part of the EU, right? Because when people migrated, and it now meant that when they were within the EU, they could move within the member states. So people who wanted to leave felt like, you know what, we're having this influx and we just can't handle it, and there's just too many. And then they also felt like all the public services were now under strain because there was so many immigrants coming into the country, and they just felt like, you know what, we were just unable to help it, you know, to help these people because public services are now strained, right? And then they also felt like now high immigration has basically driven down wages for British workers. So they felt like with the influx now, labor has gotten cheaper, and now it means that what they would have been paying a British worker, for example, it's now a lot less. And then for those who wanted to stay, they felt like, you know what, immigrants, you know, especially those from the EU and other places, they will be able to pay more taxes than they were taking out, right? Now, Nigel, who is a leader of the UKIP, basically was quoted as saying that 4 million net immigrants in the last 13 years to Britain represents an astonishing social change, and one that people simply do not want. And this was back in 2014. So already in 2014, this whole thing was bubbling, where a lot of UK people were not feeling all that welcoming, you know, to a lot of immigrants, where they just felt like, you know, you guys are coming here and you're taking over and you're doing all of these different things. For me, this is when I really just started to, you know, look at it in terms of a bigger picture. Is that like, it's interesting to me that, you know, a lot of how the decision was made, it was hidden behind things like immigration, you know, a strain on social services and this and that. And I'm like, a lot of it just was starting to come across very xenophobic, very hateful, and very just angry, you know, where you had people who were saying, you know what, we don't want to help you guys anymore because, and even though those were not the words they were saying, but it felt very like, you know, you guys just come here and you take over our things and you do this and you do this and you do this. And it's funny because it's a type of speech that I've heard. I mean, it's not only just in the UK. I mean, if you think about it in South Africa, a lot of South Africans say that about foreign people all the time. You come in, you take our jobs, you fill out hospitals, you do this and you do this and you do that. But you're not thinking about the fact that, you know, people do come in and they work, you know, and they, you know, they help the economy, they boost the economy, they pay taxes, all of these different things. And I just felt like all that, you know, xenophobia and that hate and not trying to understand people was one of the biggest driving forces. Yes, there were a lot of other things that people were discussing, but this is what I felt like was the biggest one. But when it all went down, I think what surprised me really was the voting. And voting, you know, sort of showed how, you know, people were feeling and just the demographics. Because if you look at the numbers when they came out, it basically shows that the vote was divided amongst the young and the old, where a lot of young people were feeling like, you know what, no, let's stay, and a lot of the old people felt like, you know, they should leave, you know, because they feel like, no, the people, the immigrants, you know, they're coming in and they're doing this, that, and the third, and they felt like they should leave. So if you look at all the statistics that have been coming out, it's just basically showing you that more of the young people were in favor of them staying and the older people were in favor of them leaving. Now, what I found interesting is after all of this, you had a lot of old people being interviewed by the BBC, and all of them were shocked. You know, they were so surprised, like, oh my goodness, I didn't think my vote would count. You know, they were saying things like, I didn't think that me voting that we should leave, we would actually leave. And for me, I remember when I saw that, I know a lot of people found humor in it, and initially I think I did laugh, but then I stepped back and I realized, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is what happens when, you know, we're fueled by fear and by ignorance, and then we make these decisions which are lasting decisions for the rest of our lives. Because as soon as they left, everything changed. You know, the currency went down, like there was a lot of panic, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things changed, and I feel like a lot of it was based off of things that were not substantiated. It was based on a lot of hate and fear of people who are different, and spending a lot of time on saying, we don't want you here, you come with your issues and we don't want you, so stay over there and we'll stay over here. And then you leave and you start to see, oh my goodness, this thing is actually really falling apart. Because I think the lesson is also that, you know, we can't do this life thing alone. We need each other to be able to work together, you know. And then I remember I saw it happening a lot on Twitter where people are asking the question that, you know what, should old people be allowed to vote? Because a lot of, after the vote happened, a lot of the people who were regretting and were feeling like, oh my goodness, it was a lot of the elderly people. And a lot of young people came out in strong opinions and very angry because they felt like a lot of the old people made a decision for them that wrecked their future. Because they're like, a bulk of you guys decided and you're basing this thing off of fear and hate, and now you've essentially like put our future in jeopardy, right? And I remember someone raised the question of, well, should old people be allowed to vote? And I thought about it, I'm like, well, should they? Right? In the same way that when you are young of a certain age, you're not allowed to vote. Why? Because we say that you don't understand the consequences of your decision. So only up until you clock a certain age, we feel like you're mature enough to make a decision. So then, should the same hold true? And I'm only asking this question because I saw a lot of it coming up, or should the same hold true, on the other end? And if that's the case, who gets to decide? If we're gonna say old people shouldn't vote, who gets to decide what's the cutoff? Who gets to decide, okay, if you're 60, whatever, however old, like my father, like our fathers, like the people that we know, should they not get to vote all of a sudden because they're old? Like, I just feel like it's such a slippery slope, because on one end you can say, Chris Rock makes this joke. He made this joke when John McCain was running for president, and he's like, because he's so old, how can he be deciding on the future when he's not even going to be there, type of thing. And I think that's where a lot of the anger of the young people is coming from, that you guys are old, you're in your 60s, you're 70, and you're deciding this thing for us, but you're not even going to be here. Now we have to live with the consequences of your decision. I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and I raised this also, and she's like, for her grandfather, as old as he is, and for everything that he's gone through in South Africa, for example, she'd be like, it would be unfair to take that away from him and simply say, because you're old, we're not going to trust you with this vote because we think we're going to make a bad decision. Because if that's the case, it could be said of anyone, even of voting age. So let me know what you guys think about that question of, should old people be allowed to vote, and if we and what the cutoff is going to be, and if it's even something that we're going to engage in. Because I can definitely tell you now, from the conversation that I've been seeing, a lot of the young people in the UK are very, very angry because they feel like old people just sort of wrecked it for them. So let me know what you guys think, because we stay in the comment section, so let me know what you think. And basically, with this whole thing now going on, we also saw in the news that David Cameron then resigned. I knew that he was going to leave, whether it was on his own or he was forced or whatever it is, but I knew that he was going to leave because this has been a catastrophe, and I think it's something that no one really knew or thought would actually get to this point. But here they are, here they are. And someone made a very interesting point that it's funny, that the UK can sit back and be like, we're so tired of, immigrants and people coming into our country and taking out the things, this, that, and the third. But I mean, you just look over at Africa, you look over at India, and you're like, I don't think you guys get it. Because it was funny, because at some point there were a lot of people who were pro them leaving, were happy, yes, we finally got our independence. And I'm like, so awkward. It's so awkward that when it's on, like, for you guys, you get it, you understand independence and you understand this, but when it's on the other foot, not so much. When it comes to India, not so much. When it comes to, African countries, not so much. So I'm like, it's interesting how this independence works, that it only works when it's to your benefit and not so much to anyone else's. I think it's going to be an interesting couple of, days, just to see how the markets and everything calms down, because I know that's been some of people's biggest concerns. But beyond that, it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to work itself out in the next year or two when they actually now leave the EU. So what's also been happening is that with the whole thing in the EU, Donald Trump has come out in support of them basically leaving. It's not surprising, because if you actually started to listen to the rhetoric of the what is it, UKIP, that party, and you listen to Donald Trump and how he felt about, immigrants and all that, you can see that it actually wasn't that different. So it doesn't surprise me really that he was one of the first people to come out in support and be like, we support you and this is a good thing, because that's exactly what he wants to do in the US. He basically wants to create that thing of, you guys stay out and stay over there, because all you do is bring nothing but problems and issues and everything. So of course he's gonna be one of the first people to clap and be like, you guys have done a great thing. So I think it's gonna be an interesting year. It's interesting times in terms of our politics and where we're heading collectively as as the world, to see where we're headed. So interesting times. So an ANC rally happened a couple of days ago. I'm laughing because I think it's funny. But what was funny really, and the only thing I want to highlight about this whole rally, because I really didn't listen to anything that was being said, the only thing I wanted to highlight was this. This is a picture of Number One sleeping when the leader of the Youth League was giving a speech. If this doesn't really sum up the general feeling of like, politics and where people are at, and the feelings that people have, because honestly it doesn't inspire people in any type of way when Number One is sleeping. It really doesn't, especially when the Youth League is concerned. So I saw this and I giggled to myself. I'm like, wow, I guess this is where we're at. In entertainment news, Casper was on Sway in the morning. That's great. Like, being on Sway is a great thing. It's a huge thing for Casper. It opened doors, and like, well done to the kid. That's all I'm gonna say about Casper Sway in the morning. That's it. He did a great job. Last but not least, the BET Awards happened, and the one category that we all cared about was this category. A whole bunch of really talented people were nominated in this category, and at the end the winner was Black Coffee. Yay! Which is really great. He has just been out there, he's been touring all over the world, he's been meeting all these great people. He really has been doing an incredible job, and we're happy for him, and it's a great win for him to be able to get this award, and it really is a big deal. So congratulations to Black Coffee. That suit is interesting. It's green.